Here's our review for the first part of Chapter 3. This is probably the part that has the most in it, but we're going to go over function notation, domain, and range. And we're going to use this problem. A person drinks n ounces of a 20-ounce sports drink. Find the function, domain, and range. Okay, so we want to write a function of this. You should pause the video and see if you can do this on your own first. And then compare your answer to the answer that I come up with. There are a couple of differences that aren't really differences. Like you could use a different letter for your function notation, but the domain and the range should be the same. And your function should generally look the same even if you use different letters. Okay, so a person drinks n ounces of a 20-ounce sports drink. If I'm going to write this, I want a function, and the function is going to represent how much of the sports drink is left. So I'm just going to use our standard f, and I'm going to use n for my variable, my independent variable. So a function based off of n is equal to, well, I'm drinking it, which means it's going down. So negative n, that's the number of ounces, plus 20, and that's the initial amount of the ounces. And if I were to graph this, or sketch a graph of this, because I'm not going to graph that, especially on this. My y-intercept would be up here at 20 ounces. That's when the bottle is full. And as I drink, once I drink 20 ounces, that's when the bottle is empty and there's nothing left. And so this is what my graph is going to look like. It's a fairly straight line. Now I need to figure out what would the domain and range be. So when we have these graphs, if we have a graph something like this and our line just goes on forever and ever, in this case the domain is all real numbers, the range is all real numbers, because we go all the way to negative infinity, we go all the way to positive infinity. There's no number that doesn't count. So the things that we want to look at are there bounds to our graph? Are there things that we can't do? And let's start with the domain. So with the domain, we need to think about, is this a continuous or a discrete domain? By continuous, I mean, can I use any of the x values in the domain, or am I limited to whole numbers? And if we're talking about ounces, really I can use fractions of ounces, and so really I can use any number of ounces. I can drink 20.0, well, I can't. I can drink 1.001 ounces, though that would be hard to measure. I could do that, right? And so really it's going to be a continuous function. It's going to be continuous in the domain and the range. Okay, so when we have a continuous function, our domain range looks something like number is less than or equal to, I shouldn't use n, well, we'll go with that for now. X is less than or equal to some other number. Okay, and if it were discrete, we would have a list of all the possible values that n could be. And then the next thing we want to know is, well, what is this n1 and what is this n2? And the n1 and the n2 are, how much can we drink? Well, we can't drink less than 0, right? That wouldn't make sense. That would be kind of like, okay, now we're putting juice back into the drink bottle and it's not going to fit. Anyway, we can't drink less than there is, or we can't drink less than 0. We have to drink at least nothing, right? So we're going to say that this side, our bound is 0. 0 is less than or equal to, and I'm going to use n because that's the variable from the notation. And then that's going to be less than or equal to 20 because I can't drink more than is in the bottle. Again, that doesn't make sense. So it has to be somewhere between 0 and 20 ounces. And that is going to be my domain. Let's look at the range. Well, for this one, it's actually pretty easy because there is somewhere between the bottle being empty, which would be at 0, and we can use f of n, but really we're going to use y for this. You could use f of n, and that would be fine. You'd still get full points for that. But I'm going to say y because this is our y-axis. 0 is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 20 because again the bottle can't be more full than it is. We're not sports drink bottle fillers, so we're not putting more in there. Okay, and so that would be our range. And again, it is continuous because you can have 19.999999 ounces in there and 19.98888. Anyway, you can have fractions of ounces, and so it is continuous. So it's any value between 0 and 20, and any value between 0 and 20 for the domain as well. And that's really all there is for that.